Stephen Hawking was born in Oxford in 1942, exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo Galilei. This coincidence later felt symbolic, as if the torch of cosmic discovery had been passed on. As a child, he was curious, but far from a model student. Teachers described him as brilliant but lazy, always more interested in building things than following lessons. His friends nicknamed him Einstein, not because of his grades, but because of the way he could grasp complicated ideas with almost no effort. Young Hawking loved to take apart clocks and radios, not to fix them, but to see how they worked. This obsession with the hidden machinery of the world would later evolve into his drive to uncover the hidden machinery of the universe itself. Even then, his true genius wasn't memorizing facts. It was in asking questions that nobody else thought to ask.
At the age of 21, while studying at Cambridge, Stephen Hawking began noticing unusual clumsiness and slurred speech. After several tests, doctors delivered a devastating diagnosis: amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, a motor neuron disease that gradually paralyzes the body. The doctors gave him just 2 to 3 years to live. For a young man at the start of his career, it felt like a death sentence. Hawking fell into deep depression, questioning the point of continuing his studies or even life itself. But something remarkable happened. Around this time, he fell in love with Jane Wilde, who later became his wife. Her support and his own burning curiosity about the universe reignited his will to fight. Instead of collapsing under the weight of his diagnosis, Hawking made a bold decision. If his body was failing, then he would dedicate what time he had left to the only tool that still worked perfectly: his mind. And with that, the young man who was supposed to die before finishing his degree began a journey that would redefine modern physics.
Most scientists once believed black holes were absolute prisons of gravity, swallowing everything forever. But Stephen Hawking dared to ask, what happens at the very edge of a black hole? Using quantum mechanics and Einstein's theory of relativity together, he made a shocking discovery. Black holes aren't completely black. They can actually emit radiation. This Hawking radiation meant black holes could shrink and eventually die. It was revolutionary. Before this, black holes were thought of as eternal monsters in space. Hawking proved they were dynamic objects with life cycles of their own. This breakthrough did more than just rewrite astronomy textbooks. It raised one of the biggest puzzles in science. If black holes can evaporate, what happens to the information that falls inside? Does it vanish forever, or is it somehow preserved? This question, known as the information paradox, remains unsolved today, keeping Hawking's name at the center of physics debates. With this discovery, Hawking didn't just study the universe, he forced scientists to rethink its most fundamental laws.
By the mid-1980s, Hawking had lost almost all ability to speak. After a life-saving tracheotomy in 1985, he was left completely voiceless. For most, this would have ended a career. For Hawking, it was the beginning of a new chapter. Engineers built him a speech-generating computer, first operated with a hand switch and later with just a tiny movement of his cheek. The system let him select words on a screen, which were then spoken in a distinct robotic voice with an American accent. At first, he thought he would one day replace it with a more natural voice, but the sound became his trademark. The world knew that voice instantly, and Hawking grew attached to it, saying, "Without it, I would not have had a voice. With it, I found I had a new one." This voice didn't just give him a way to lecture, write books, and debate other scientists. It turned him into an icon, a man who could barely move his body, yet could still speak to the entire planet. His voice became the bridge between his mind and the universe.
Stephen Hawking was more than a scientist. He became a global symbol of intelligence and resilience. His robotic voice and wheelchair were instantly recognizable, making him one of the most famous scientists since Einstein. He appeared on The Simpsons, where he joked about stealing Homer's idea for a donut-shaped universe. On Star Trek: The Next Generation, he played poker with Einstein and Newton. And on The Big Bang Theory, he teased Sheldon Cooper by correcting his equations. These appearances weren't just for fun. They made science cool and accessible. Hawking showed the world that physics wasn't locked away in dusty textbooks, but alive, humorous, and part of popular culture. He once said, "My goal is simple. It is complete understanding of the universe, why it is as it is, and why it exists at all." Through books, documentaries, and pop culture, he inspired millions of young people to look at the stars not with fear, but with wonder. Hawking didn't just sit in his chair and explain the cosmos. He made the cosmos entertaining.
Behind the serious physicist was a man with a surprising sense of humor and mischief. Hawking loved pranks and jokes, often catching colleagues off guard. Once, he deliberately drove his wheelchair into a scientist's foot and then calmly remarked, "You should have moved out of the way." He also had a love for bets on science. With fellow physicist Kip Thorne, he bet that black holes didn't exist. Years later, when evidence proved they did, Hawking conceded defeat and paid up with a baseball encyclopedia. Another time, he bet that information was lost in black holes, but later admitted he was wrong, saying it was the most expensive mistake of his life because the prize was an encyclopedia of cricket. And then there was his fascination with time travel. To test it, Hawking once held a party for time travelers, but he sent out the invitations after the party was over. Nobody showed up. He took this as evidence that time travel into the past isn't possible. These untold stories revealed a side of Hawking most people never saw. A man who, despite his condition, never lost the ability to laugh, play, and challenge reality itself.
Stephen Hawking wasn't only a scientist of the stars, he was also a prophet of danger. As he looked deeper into the universe, he also worried about the future of humankind. He repeatedly warned about artificial intelligence, saying, "The development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race." He believed machines, if left unchecked, could surpass us and evolve beyond our control. Hawking also sounded alarms on climate change, urging global leaders to act before Earth became uninhabitable. He warned that if we continued on our current path, our planet could end up looking like Venus, hot, toxic, and lifeless. He also feared nuclear weapons and global conflict, pointing out that advanced technology had given humanity the power to destroy itself many times over. His solution? The stars. Hawking argued that humanity must become a multiplanetary species, colonizing other worlds if it hoped to survive in the long run. He believed Mars and perhaps even distant exoplanets could one day be our insurance against extinction. His warnings weren't about fear, they were about responsibility. He reminded us that genius means nothing if humanity doesn't learn how to protect itself.
Stephen Hawking's public image was that of an unshakable genius, but his private life was filled with challenges.
His illness made daily life incredibly difficult. He needed constant care, and this placed immense pressure on his relationships. His first marriage, to Jane Wilde, was a partnership of love and endurance. Jane cared for him while raising their 3 children, often under exhausting circumstances. Their story showed how love and science can coexist, but also how strain can slowly break bonds. Eventually, the marriage ended. Later, Hawking married his nurse, Elaine Mason, a relationship that sparked controversy and rumors of mistreatment, though Hawking himself denied them. These complexities revealed a man who, despite his extraordinary mind, still lived a deeply human life, with struggles, flaws, and emotional storms. What made him remarkable was not a perfect private life, but the fact that even through these struggles, he continued to work, lecture, and inspire. His daughter Lucy once said, "He may not have been able to move, but he lived more than most people ever will." Hawking's personal life was a reminder that genius doesn't remove pain or difficulty, but it can give meaning and strength to endure them.
In his later years, Stephen Hawking's body weakened further, but his influence only grew stronger. He continued to lecture worldwide, sometimes delivering talks by controlling his computer with just the twitch of a cheek muscle. Audiences would sit in complete silence, waiting as each sentence formed. And when his voice finally spoke, it carried the weight of the cosmos. He fulfilled a lifelong dream by experiencing zero gravity aboard a special flight, floating free from his wheelchair. The photos of him smiling while weightless became a symbol of his spirit. Gravity itself could not hold him down. Meanwhile, his book, A Brief History of Time, became a global phenomenon, selling over 25 million copies and making him one of the most widely read scientists in history. In 2018, Stephen Hawking passed away at the age of 76, far beyond the 2 years doctors once gave him. The date was uncanny, March 14th, Albert Einstein's birthday, as if the universe had closed a cosmic loop. Even in death, his life felt like part of a grand cosmic design.
Stephen Hawking left behind more than theories. He left behind a way of thinking. He showed the world that the human mind can rise above the limits of the body, and that curiosity can survive even in the face of impossible odds. His ideas about black holes, the Big Bang, and the fate of the universe continue to challenge scientists today. His information paradox remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in physics. But beyond science, Hawking's legacy is deeply human. He proved that illness, struggle, and limitation do not define us. Imagination does. He reminded us to look outward, not inward, saying, "Look up at the stars and not down at your feet." He became a symbol of resilience, humor, and the unstoppable power of curiosity. Generations will remember him not only as a physicist, but as a voice that taught us to wonder. Stephen Hawking once said, "Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change." And in adapting to the cruelest change of all, he transformed his life into a story of brilliance, courage, and inspiration for all of humanity.
Even after his death, Stephen Hawking's life is surrounded by hidden gems and lesser-known tales that reveal just how extraordinary he was. Hawking's robotic voice was so iconic that he rejected offers of smoother, more natural ones. He insisted, "It is my voice." That digital accent became part of his identity. He believed alien civilizations likely exist, but feared they could be dangerous. He said, "If aliens visit us, the outcome could be like when Columbus landed in America." His warning turned science fiction into real caution.
In 2009, Hawking threw a champagne party for time travelers, but only sent out the invitations after it ended. Nobody came. He said with a smile, "I was disappointed, but not surprised." His humor was legendary. He ran over Prince Charles's toes with his wheelchair, later joking, "I have diplomatic immunity." Shortly before his death, he co-authored a final paper proposing that our universe might just be one of many. It was his last attempt to answer the question, why are we here? In 2018, his ashes were interred in Westminster Abbey between Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, placing him among the greatest scientific minds in history. Stephen Hawking's life wasn't just about black holes and equations. It was proof that even against impossible odds, curiosity and humor can make you immortal.
Stephen Hawking's brilliance wasn't only in equations, it was in the way he spoke about life, the universe, and our place within it. His quotes continue to inspire millions. Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Where there's life, there's hope. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. We are just an advanced breed of monkeys on a minor planet of a very average star, but we can understand the universe. That makes us something very special. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. I think computer viruses should count as life. I think it says something about human nature that the only form of life we have created so far is purely destructive. Although I cannot move and I have to speak through a computer, in my mind I am free. His words prove that the voice of a man who could barely move still shook the world, not with force, but with wisdom.